Hello everybody, welcome to Bass and Bonsai. This is how you do it. Big, giant, largemouth bass. And oh yes, she's a kisser. Mwah. Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Getting ready to go fishing, but we're not there yet. This video today is about Z-Man products, mainly the Elaztech. But cold weather, waiting for it to warm up, figure out throw a video together. Buckle up, hang on, here we go. Let's dive into these baits. Z-Man Elaztech, you guys have all heard the horror stories, maybe had some yourself, of these baits, you know, melting with other baits. They're, you know, impossible to rig or keep on a bait keeper, that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd throw together just a quick explanation of how I've used these baits, because I love the Z-Man stuff. You know, mainly the 7-inch finesse worms, these right here. Also, you know, of course, everybody, the craze going around is the TRD, the Ned rig stuff. And they've got several other baits, but I'm going to show you just a few simple ways that I rig the baits up. Now, I'll jump real quick, and everybody's probably want to know about the TRDs and the Ned rigs and what to do and all that kind of stuff if you don't know anything about them. So the first thing, I guess before I even show you how to rig these baits, let me explain how I keep them and the way you have to keep these baits. Do not take Z-Man products with the Elaztech soft plastic stuff out of these packages, put them in any other boxes or that kind of stuff. That is a big no-no. Keep them right in here in these. Don't stick other plastics in here with these. They'll melt together. The chemical makeup of these does not go with any other plastics. Don't do it. Keep them separated. Now, I don't even recommend putting them in with the other baits. They tend to bleed on each other, if you know, or they can. So, all right, you got that down. You're keeping them all in their own separate bags, right? Now, here's the thing about this. You also do not smash these. They can't take a ton of weight. They can't take extreme cold or extreme heat. They need to be roughly room temperature. How do you do that when you're out in the middle of, you know, 95-degree air temps on the water? Right here, I have an Igloo, basically a cooler backpack. I keep all of mine in now. Did it this last year, no problems. The year before, I kind of just kept them in my tackle box, but I did have a few issues. And then the year before that, actually, I put them out in the garage where it got below freezing, or, you know, right there close to freezing. I left them in my truck overnight one night. They will freeze. I don't think it really hurts them, but it definitely doesn't help, and too many freeze cycles would hurt these baits. So keep them room temperature. You do that by keeping, you know, a cooler tackle box, some way to keep them out of the direct sunlight, and then a, you know, which is this Igloo cooler box, anything like this. That's what I recommend. Throw them in there. You know, I've had that in the boat last summer. Not one issue with anything melting or anything like that. So that's how you store them. It's that simple. Can you get by with just keeping them in your tackle box? Yes. If do not set these out on the deck of your boat in extreme heat. They will melt down. That they can only, you know, take so much. So we figured out how to store them, right? Just keep them room temperature. It's pretty much that simple. Don't mix them with any other baits. Not that complicated, Emily. But anyway, so how do we rig these? We got the TRD, man. We've heard stories about this bait. We're gonna go out and we're gonna use it. How do we get this sucker rigged up? Now, it doesn't really matter which side you put on the jig. And I'm gonna show you the new jig I just picked up just because it's bright and pretty. But I'm trying the red-headed one for the first time. I've had these all, you know, in the black or the green. But I've heard stories that some of the, you know, smaller panfish stuff, they are attracted to that red head. So I figured I'd give it a shot. Now, what I like to do, I like to leave the one with the little bulbs and little balls on the outside. I like to take the lines, and that's actually what I rig up. And this is real simple. You just rig it like you would a normal bait. Now, if it's got a lighter side, or what you call the belly, the bottom of it, I try to rig that where it's going to be basically down, and the hook point will be up into the darker part. And, you know, this is just a simple way to rig them up. And Z-Man, you don't have to worry about if you goof up a little bit and tearing the plastics and all that. Like I got way too far, just pull it back some. Z-Man baits can actually take a beating, and I'll explain to you in a little. Well, that is horrible. I'm better at this when I'm not trying to film it. But let me see. Don't need to go that far. And that's better. And it doesn't have, well, it does need to be straight. That's your main thing. The color really doesn't matter, but it does need to be straight, and that's one of the keys to the TRDs. But anyway, we know how to rig that. Now I'm going to show you the way I also rig it, and I will show you the three. I primarily use 16th ounce. Sometimes I go to an 1/8, but especially with TRD, I don't really go down any smaller, up any higher. But Bagley makes one. VMC actually makes a couple different styles. Now these are the ones I use on my shaky head. They're shaky 16 ounce shaky head jigs. And for pretty much the TRDs, you could use any of these, but the one that I go to is this guy right here. It's kind of a light wire hook. It's going to have the perfect setup for it. So this is just like you would Texas rig a Texas rigged worm. You do the TRD the exact same way. So you're going to keep that belly down. Going to go to about right there. Pull it through. Pull it all the way through. Push it on up into the head. See that? You got that perfect thing. You're going to basically do the same thing. You're going to go all the way through the bait just like you would. Now the Ned rigs and TRDs, you know, or the Elaztech in general, but you can still just like that right there. Now will this work quite like the Ned rig would normally? Not necessarily. It might stay down a little bit more, but what that lets you do is take that little thing and throw it anywhere. I mean anywhere, in any kind of nasty cover through grass. It just slides right through grass and all that. And that's the way I rig that up on when I'm in any kind of, you know, cover where I might possibly get snagged up with an exposed hook. Now in any kind of open water, you want to go, and I've got several different kinds, and they make a bunch of different sizes, even to this big jumbo size that, you know, would basically fill up the hole almost as big as what that is. But if you're in, you know, open water, there's no cover, go with just a standard traditional Ned rig. But if you're in any kind of issues, or you just keep hanging up with the Ned rig, try that. That's a perfect way to rig them up. All right, what else do I need to talk about? Okay, and those three kind of jigs, if you really want the Elaztech stuff to stay on, the hook keeper, something like this, they will, you know, pretty much stay on this. This one I could rig up also kind of the same way. This one I want to go like at an angle. I want to push it past that, and then same thing, I'm just gonna, however it goes, looks like it's angling through, that's the way I want to put it through. So then you have this, and you can pull it back out. You want to make sure that you can run your finger across that without it catching, and then that way when the fish bites down, it'll get past that. So there's several different ways, and you don't want to do this with normal baits. You don't want to sit and rig them and re-rig them again, but the Elaztech, it lasts. So let me show you. I'm going to go to a bigger bait, and you can go to various places have the VMC. I recommend 16th ounce shaky head jigs for almost everything, whether you're trying to run a Ned rig Weedless or the finesse worms or whatever. So let's jump to these. These are what I recommend you get picking up. Zinkers are kind of like what the Cincos, you know, everybody copied that. You know, you got the Yum Dinger. Everybody has their version of a Cinco, right? Well, this is Z-Man's. And with this bait, I'll show you real quick, you can rig it several different ways. You know, Wacky rig, just rig it up on a shaky head. And why do I recommend picking up several of these? If you take this thing, and basically you can cut it in half pretty much. Here, I'll show you. Now they've got all kinds of different, you know, but you see that? Pretty much you cut these right in half, and you have two of these little TRDs. It's very, very close. I mean, yeah, if you want to, you can have different ones, but I'd recommend picking up a lot of these. And if you're out there and this color's working, you know, or seems to be working somewhat, you could also try it in a Ned rig, or if, you know, that's the only color you have. I have a bunch of these that I picked up, the finesse TRDs, but I probably don't need it, especially if you have less room. If you're in a kayak and you don't have a ton of room, use these. What you can do, like you see me rig this up with the Ned rig, you can do the same thing, rig that up and then fish it like shaky head. You've seen me fish it shaky head. You cut it in half, you know, do the weedless Ned rig. You can also take, now these hooks will also work. I mean, there's no reason why they won't. You can wig it up. You can rig it up Wacky style with the shaky head jig if you need to. You don't have to buy a ton of different jigs. That will work, but they also make Wacky rig hooks and little jigs that, you know, maybe work just a touch better. I already have some, and either way the process is the same. You guys are probably used to seeing people hooking them up in different ways with just a hook, and it's more of a rounded hook, or they use the little O-ring, you know. But with the Z-Man products, what you're going to want to do is get into the belly, the widest part, you know, because when that weight pulls it down. So you're going to want to get in there, and sometimes it's rough finding the center. That's never quite centered. This is a little thicker towards the tail, so you'll want to go towards the thickest part a little bit closer. And if you look, there's a little smooth spot. You want to go just on the other side of that smooth spot and go just into the smooth spot, something like that. But roughly that right there, what that does when you cast out, this little bit of weight is all it takes. That little bit of weight is going to make this thing flutter just like a normal traditional Cinco, and it stays right there, and your hookup ratio is very good rigged just like that, not the sideways thing, because you can rig it like that, but what happens is this worm will typically fall off, so then you need to use the O-rings, and it's just extra stuff you don't need. If you rig it just the way I did right there, and you may have to play with finding the actual center. When you throw that in the water, you want it to do just like a, you know, you want these to flutter, but you don't want it to angle anyway. You want it to just flutter straight down. You may have to play with these to find your center, but that is deadly. But that single bait can be used several different ways. And so you could do the same thing with this. You could take your shaky head jig, whichever one you have, and now I recommend going here, because when you end up with the weight kind of on this side closer to this. That's just, I don't know, it's just kind of me. You don't have to, it doesn't really matter which way. But you could do the same thing with this. Now you got a little more, you know, to work with, but it's basically the same thing. And this will pull it down and it'll flutter down if you don't have any wacky hooks and you're out there just thinking like, I'm gonna try wacky rigged. 16th ounce, 8th ounce, 1/4 ounce shaky head jigs will do the same thing. They'll pull it down so fast and maybe make it fold up. That's why I recommend a 16th ounce tends to be what gets these to roughly sink about the same speed that the Cinco sink, you know, wigged. I keep saying wigged, rigged up weightless. So anyway, guys, I hope that helped. Oh, do you guys want to see how I rig it up? If you just want to rig it shaky head, just do it like you would a Texas style. See that? Just go through. So you could take this one bait, not quite straight, but you could take this one style of hook, and these are the VMC, I want to say they're called, I have to get that to you, I can't remember the exact name. They got two different styles. I know I recommend this style over this style. If you tie directly on, this style will work, but I can't get my snaps to clip into these. See how that's a little more buried? If you want that hook not basically to be buried, it's not really a big deal. I like these better. I think it actually pulls. I think these actually set the hook a little bit better than what these do. Plus they're harder to use. But anyway, right there, VMC. They're like a finesse. I don't know, I'll look it up. But you can take this one jig, this one bait like this, you can cut it in half, you can rig it shaky head, you can wacky rig it, and use it several different ways. So that's why I highly recommend those, and that's how I, you know, rig up my Z-Man stuff. Once you get the hang of Z-Man, the Elaztech stuff, it's easier to rig them up, and they just stay on way better than any of your other soft plastics. It's the Ike approved rugby jig head, finesse rugby, and then there's the rugby jig head is one that's kind of hard to get a, and then there's the Wacky jig. So you can get, I recommend VMC pretty much for all of that stuff, and then you can get that shaky head jig. They have several others, but I do like, I just started getting the Bagleys, and they tend to be awesome. And then there's the finesse half moon jigs are the other ones. So you got the finesse half moon, that's, I really like those. You got the finesse rugby jig. Where'd that go? That's a finesse rugby jig, and I really like that. I can't talk today. I can't talk most days, but. And then that's just the rugby jig, and it's got the, look at that. You cannot it's hard to get in there with any kind of, you definitely can't get a snap in there, but it's even hard to get your line in there right. I don't really like those, but if you really want that, you know, kind of a football head look to it, they're not, I guess they're not bad. And then I showed you that, where my phone went. I know my phone's broke. But then just the Wacky, Weedless Wacky jigs. Those are awesome too. So if I had to go with one brand, I guess VMC would be the way to go to get all of your pretty much 16th ounce jigs. Yes, they have other sizes, but I'm telling you guys, I find it getting down in that, you know, 2 to 6 foot shallower grass areas and in through those weeds and grass. 16th ounce, man, you just skip it across the top so that doesn't dig and bite in, so you don't lose as many casts or spook as many fish by just getting caught and having to yank it out. It's kind of caught and you pull, but it like pops out and you'll get hit right then and there. That's just 16th ounce seems to be that little, you know, sweet spot on that weight for me with the at least with the Elaztech stuff, which is a little more buoyant than other stuff. So sometimes you might want to rig up a, you know, a Cinco weightless and throw it, because it will sink kind of on its own about roughly that same speed. Or, you know, the dingers, the swimming dingers, that kind of thing. I like to rig those with 16th ounce also and swim them just a little bit faster, especially the one with the swimming dinger. So yeah, I'm getting out of here, man. So you got that. Then when you're done with them, also one last thing I would recommend: don't leave them rigged up, especially if your jig heads are painted. Now, if they're unpainted, it doesn't seem to matter, but that Elaztech will react to the paint. So if you have a bait rigged up on this and it's anything that's touching paint, it won't necessarily eat both of them up, but it'll kind of, you can just tell it's like a loose fit when you pull it out of the package. So I recommend on any soft plastic, especially anything with salt, it can make your hooks rust easier, is the, you know, your trailers on all your stuff or however you have them rigged, separate them when you're done. Put your soft plastics where they go, keep them separated, that sort of thing. Also the hooks, I recommend VMC. I'm going to try to pretty much switch all my stuff. I'll tell you that real quick. I know I was kind of talking about Elaztech, but I just picked these up. VMC makes very nice stuff. That's why I recommend those, and they're not overly priced. They seem to hook up. I have good hookup ratios with fish and all that. But a Wacky 16th ounce Wacky rigged hook, 16th ounce shaky head, and I believe this one is also VMC, just a different style. I like that, the ball head. These also work real good for multiple different things, but they're kind of like a shaky head. All right, that's it. Get out of here. All right, guys, that's it. I know a long video just playing talking about Elaztech, but we got to figure it out. Also, before I get out of here, I want to tell you real quick. This is probably my favorite and one of the first shaky head jigs I started using. And this baby was awesome. True tungsten, I believe. Mike Iaconelli's picture was on it. But this bait, light wire, and worked awesome. You can't get them anymore. I can't find them. What I noticed when I was looking at, I know it's Charlie Brewer, but the sliders, more for like crappie, some of his 16th and 8th ounce jig heads that he has, kind of where you can rig baits, Weedless, has that same, like where, you know, it shows you using the swim bait like that. But I think his could possibly be used for those small, you know, the shaky heads, and maybe even a TRD rigged up Weedless. So anyway, I keep mixing rigged and Weedless together. Get out of here, go bass and bonsai for yourself, and thank you for watching. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go fishing.
Exactly how we do it. Big largemouth bass. Let's see if it'll jump. That is a beauty. We're gonna jump. Yeah! Woo!